You were driving home. Nothing dramatic. No car chase, no exploding helicopters, no man in sunglasses whispering into an earpiece. Just you, your steering wheel, and the noble struggle of pretending you know where you parked your soul. But above the road, on a pole, hidden in traffic lights, mounted on the side of a patrol car, or bolted to a bridge like a mechanical gargoyle, a camera sees your plate. Not just sees it, it reads it, turns metal into text, text into data, data into a searchable memory. And in less time than it takes you to complain about gas prices, a machine may have logged where your vehicle was, when it was there, and whether anyone, anywhere, wanted that plate flagged. This is automatic license plate recognition, ALPR. And no, this is not science fiction with a budget problem. This is real, deployed, operational, fixed, mobile, routine. Tonight, we're going into the machine. Not just the camera, not just the software, but the whole kingdom beneath it. The optics, the OCR, the databases, the hot lists, the privacy fights, the bad reads, the cracked logic, the public safety promises, and the uncomfortable truth that one of the most powerful surveillance systems in modern life works by reading the same little metal rectangle you barely notice. So, buckle up, because the road has eyes. Let's define the beast before we dissect it. ALPR, sometimes called LPR for license plate reader or recognition, is a system that uses cameras plus software to capture plate images, extract the characters, and compare them against databases. DHS materials describe ALPR technology as high-speed cameras and related equipment mounted on vehicles or installed in fixed positions, while DHS market survey material says these systems rapidly scan plate information, compare plate numbers against databases, generate alerts, and create records of vehicle sightings. That means ALPR is not one gadget, it is a pipeline. A pipeline that says, camera, look, software, interpret, database, remember, system, decide whether this matters. And once you understand that, you stop thinking of ALPR as a camera on a pole and start realizing it's closer to an automated search engine for vehicle movement. That is where this gets interesting, and also where it starts to feel like Orwell got a software update. The basic magic, how a plate becomes data. At the front of the system is the camera, sometimes fixed, sometimes mobile, sometimes roadside, sometimes mounted on law enforcement vehicles. DHS privacy documentation describes mobile ALPRs mounted on CBP vehicles and also describes fixed deployments at ports of entry and other locations. DHS documents also describe commercial fixed and mobile license plate reader use. So, picture two main species in the wild. One, fixed ALPR. These are the sentries, mounted in place, watching the same corridor, checkpoint, tolling point, border approach, parking lot, gate, or road segment over and over again. They are the spiders of the system. They build a web and wait. Two, mobile ALPR. These are the hunters, mounted on patrol vehicles or other moving platforms. They read as they roll. They are the sharks of the system, always moving, always scanning, no eyelids, no hobbies, no need for coffee. Now here comes the second step. The image is processed. The software identifies where the plate is in the image, isolates it, and runs OCR, optical character recognition, to turn the visual pattern into machine-readable text. DHS privacy assessments note that OCR of photographed license plate numbers can result in mismatches between the actual number and the recognized number. That line matters because people hear automatic and imagine perfect. But OCR is not wizardry, it is pattern recognition under stress. And the road is full of stress, glare, mud, speed, rain, angles, plate frames, motion blur, night driving, dented metal, fancy fonts, and that one driver whose plate looks like it was designed by a committee of raccoons. So the machine reads,
and sometimes the machine misreads, which means ALPR is not just a surveillance story, it is also an error story. And error, when paired with law enforcement, is one of the oldest funny jokes civilization has ever told. Why ALPR exists, the sales pitch. To understand why ALPR spread, you have to hear the promise. The promise is speed. Humans can glance at a plate. Machines can scan many plates continuously and compare them against watch lists in near real time. That makes ALPR attractive for tasks like locating stolen vehicles, flagging wanted vehicles, identifying registration or licensing issues, supporting border operations, parking enforcement, and traffic safety workflows. NHTSA describes ALPR as an important tool in law enforcement and traffic safety and says its case studies suggested efficiency and productivity gains, with traffic safety benefits often viewed as a secondary outcome, while agencies were also looking for stolen vehicles or other criminal activity. That is the official logic. Why have one officer manually eyeballing plates when a machine can scan at industrial scale? Why wait for a suspect to be seen when a network can alert the moment the vehicle passes a camera? Why rely on memory when the system can create searchable records? From an operations perspective, this is seductive because ALPR is not merely seeing more, it is reducing friction in detection. And whenever a government agency or private vendor can reduce friction in detection, collection, or search, that system tends to spread very fast, because institutions love anything that turns hard to do into click to query. The machine's secret weapon, memory. Now we reach the real power of ALPR, not the photo, not the OCR, the archive. One plate read by itself is a moment. Thousands of reads over time become a pattern becomes a route becomes a habit becomes a life. EFF warns that when ALPR data is stored for lengthy periods, it becomes more invasive and revealing, and says aggregate plate data can expose a person's pattern of life. EFF also reported that 80 California agencies using primarily vigilant technology collected more than 1.6 billion plate scans in 2022 and said 99.9% of the collected data in one analysis was unrelated to any public safety interest when gathered. That is the rabbit hole, because ALPR is often described as just photographing plates in public. But scale changes the moral geometry of a thing. A stranger seeing your car once is ordinary. A system recording where your vehicle appears across time and space, that is no longer a glance. That is memory at scale. And memory at scale changes power. It can reveal commuting routines, visits to clinics, attendance on protests, associations with family, friends, co-workers, religious institutions, or political events. Sensitive travel patterns that you never consciously shared. The camera is not the whole story. The real story is this: ALPR industrializes recall. And once recall is industrialized, surveillance stops being occasional and starts becoming architectural. The hit, when the machine rings the bell. At the heart of ALPR operations is the hit. A hit happens when the recognized plate matches an entry on a hot list or watch list, stolen vehicle, wanted person, investigative alert, or other database target. This is where the technology feels almost supernatural to its supporters. A car passes, the system chirps, the machine says, "That one." And when it works, ALPR can look like pure modern efficiency, a digital bloodhound with a camera for a nose. But the bell is only as good as the inputs. Bad plate read, wrong vehicle. Stale hot list, wrong stop. Dirty data, wrong conclusion. Human overtrust in machine output. Now the software's mistake has a badge and adrenaline. EFF documents examples in which ALPR misreads contributed to traumatic police stops and notes that courts have recognized that technology alone cannot always justify a stop. That's one of the oldest traps in technological history. When a system looks precise, humans often become less skeptical. The machine printed it. The alert sounded official. The interface looked expensive. Surely the machine must know. But a veteran engineer will tell you a clean user interface can conceal a filthy uncertainty. A wrong answer in a nice dashboard is still a wrong answer. It's just wearing a tie. OCR, the beautiful liar. Let's stay with OCR for a minute, because this is where the story gets technical in a very human way. OCR is the art of convincing a machine that a shape is a symbol. Easy on a clean document, harder on a moving plate at night, seen from an angle, with reflections, grime,
And a driver doing 70 while eating fries like a man negotiating with destiny. DHS documents explicitly note that OCR of photographed plates can produce mismatches. That means an ALPR system is always living in tension between throughput, read as much as possible, accuracy, avoid false reads, latency, alert quickly, environmental mess, the real world, which refuses to behave like a demo reel. And if you have ever wondered why technical people become slightly haunted when someone says, "Can't AI just read it?" This is why. Because the world is not a spreadsheet. It is glare. It is motion blur. It is weather. It is ambiguity dressed as confidence. And license plates, despite looking standardized, are chaotic little rebels. Different fonts, different layouts, different conditions, different state designs, different backgrounds, custom frames, partial occlusions. It's amazing ALPR works as well as it does, and dangerous to pretend it works better than it does. Fixed versus mobile, two philosophies of power. Now, let's go deeper. Fixed and mobile ALPR are not just different hardware deployments. They represent different philosophies of surveillance. Fixed ALPR says, "I will own this choke point. Roads in, roads out. Toll plazas, checkpoints, bridges, parking facilities, borders, ports of entry." Fixed ALPR builds a geography of observation. Mobile ALPR says, "I will roam." It moves through neighborhoods, parking lots, intersections, side streets, commercial areas. Mobile ALPR builds a geography of encounter. DHS materials describe both fixed and mobile deployments as part of real operational use. And once those two forms coexist in a shared ecosystem, the picture changes, because now the system is not merely watching one place or one moment, it is creating overlapping visibility. A fixed camera catches the car entering a corridor. A mobile reader sees it later downtown. Another fixed unit catches it on the way back. Each read is tiny. Together, they become narrative. And that, my friends, is the point where camera system graduates into infrastructure. The scale problem, when just data becomes society-sized. Every surveillance technology has a moment where defenders say it's only a little information. Then the dataset grows. Then it interconnects. Then query tools improve. Then retention stretches. Then sharing expands. Then everyone wakes up and discovers the little information became a civilization-sized mirror. EFF says 80 California agencies collected more than 1.6 billion ALPR scans in 2022 using primarily one vendor ecosystem. Pause on that. Billion with a B. That is no longer local note-taking. That is industrial collection. And industrial collection has industrial consequences. Cybersecurity risk, mission creep, cross-agency sharing, weak governance, misuse by insiders, over-reliance by decision-makers, false confidence in incompletely understood systems. EFF also notes that large stored ALPR datasets are susceptible to misuse and breach, and points to prior incidents involving hacked vendor data and exposed systems, which brings us to a brutal truth about modern technology. The question is never only, can this system collect? The bigger question is, can the institutions operating it secure it, govern it, limit it, audit it, and restrain themselves with it? History suggests that answer is, let's say, spiritually inconsistent. The cyber nightmare. Who watches the watchers?
A giant location database is not just tempting to law enforcement. It is tempting to criminals, stalkers, hostile insiders, extortionists, and anyone else who enjoys the phrase sensitive movement data for the wrong reasons. EFF highlighted a 2024 CISA advisory involving vulnerabilities in Motorola Solutions' vigilant ALPR devices, including missing encryption and insufficiently protected credentials. EFF also recounted prior incidents involving exposed ALPR systems and a 2019 breach affecting a CBP vendor's stored images. This is where the ALPR conversation stops being abstract, because once you build a system that knows where vehicles have been, you have created a treasure chest for anyone who wants to map lives, not theories, lives. This is why cybersecurity is not a side issue in ALPR. It is central. If your technology collects sensitive movement data at scale, then weak security is not a technical footnote. It is a structural failure. A surveillance tool that cannot be adequately secured can become a public safety threat in its own right. That irony is so sharp it could cut glass. A system built to increase security can create insecurity simply by existing badly. Public safety or mass surveillance? Now comes the fight. Supporters say ALPR helps recover stolen cars, identify vehicles linked to crimes, improve efficiency, and support traffic enforcement. And to be fair, that is not fantasy. NHTSA's review describes ALPR as an important operational tool and reports case study evidence of efficiency and productivity gains. Critics reply, yes, but these systems often collect data on enormous numbers of innocent drivers, store it too long, share it too broadly, and create infrastructure that can be used far beyond its original justification. EFF says long-term retention and broad collection make ALPR systems deeply invasive and points to use cases involving immigration enforcement and sensitive location tracking. And this is where grown-up conversation has to begin. Not with slogans, not with panic, not with techno-worship, with trade-offs. Because ALPR is one of those technologies where both halves of the argument contain real things: real utility, real risk, real investigative value, real civil liberties danger, real operational gains, real error costs, real enforcement benefits, real temptation to over-collect. If someone tells you ALPR is obviously harmless, they're ignoring scale. If someone tells you it's just a camera, they're ignoring databases. If someone tells you it's perfect, they're ignoring OCR and error. If someone tells you it has no legitimate uses, they're ignoring actual operational deployments. This is not a toy debate. This is one of the core political questions of the machine age. How much visibility should institutions have into ordinary movement? The philosophy of the plate. A license plate is such an ordinary thing. Stamped metal, issued by bureaucracy, ignored by almost everyone except your cousin who still owes 3 tickets. But in the age of ALPR, the plate becomes something else: a tracking token, a searchable index, a link between physical movement and digital memory. Not because the plate changed, because the system around it changed. That is the pattern of modern surveillance. Objects that once meant one thing begin to mean more because software arrives. A camera used to record. Now it extracts. A plate used to identify a car in the moment. Now it may participate in longitudinal analysis. A checkpoint used to observe. Now it may feed a network. And that is why the public argument over ALPR refuses to die. The technology is not only doing a task, it is quietly redefining what road travel means in a datafied society. Humor break: the machine versus human beings. Let us take one moment to appreciate the absurdity. Humans invented cars, then roads, then rules, then plates so we could identify cars, then cameras to read plates, then software to turn plates into text, then databases to remember where the plates were, then cybersecurity teams because the databases got spooky, then lawsuits because the spooky got too spooky. Civilization is basically one long saga of solving one problem by creating 6 more with better branding. And somewhere in the middle of all this is a machine trying to decide whether B8Q271 is actually 88Q27I, while rain is hitting the lens and a moth is having the best night of its life. Technology is incredible. Technology is ridiculous. Both things are true. So what should people understand? If you remember nothing else from this video, remember these 5 things. 1. ALPR is real, operational, and widely useful because it automates something humans cannot do at comparable scale. DHS and NHTSA materials describe exactly that kind of real-world use. 2. It exists in both fixed and mobile forms. It is not one type of deployment. It is an ecosystem. 3. OCR is powerful but not infallible. DHS privacy materials explicitly acknowledge mismatches in OCR-based plate recognition. 4. The deepest power of ALPR is not the single scan. It is the stored, searchable accumulation of scans over time. 5. The central public argument is not whether ALPR exists. It is whether the collection, retention, sharing, oversight, and security around it are proportionate, lawful, and trustworthy. That is the trail through the rabbit hole. The camera is just the doorway. The real maze is everything behind it. Once upon a time, the road forgot you the moment you passed. Now, sometimes it doesn't. A pole remembers. A patrol car remembers. A server remembers. A query remembers. And in that shift, from passing moment to stored event, lies one of the most important stories of our time. Not because a license plate is dramatic, but because
Ordinary things become extraordinary when machines learn to read them at scale. ALPR is not magic. It is camera plus OCR plus database plus policy plus power. And whenever power gains memory, society has to decide what kind of future it is building. So the next time you drive under a quiet little camera by the roadside, remember, it may not know you, but it may know your plate. And in the age of data, that can be close enough to start a very long story. The road has eyes. The question is, who controls the memory? If this video opened your eyes, subscribe, because next we can go even deeper. How facial recognition connects to vehicle surveillance, how OCR errors become real-world harm, or how pattern-of-life analysis turns raw data into human inference. Drop a comment with the next rabbit hole. And remember, just because a system is normal doesn't mean it's simple.